All right, Judah, we're live. What's up, everybody on Facebook? Thanks for joining us today. Um, yeah, so let's jump into this. I mean, Judah, it's been what about a week since we last
It has
talked.
been about a week. I mean, we
Yeah,
did we did one of these last one of these on Friday, and
yeah.
then I started seeing you promoting ones on Monday and Tuesday and things like that with other people. And I felt like the girl that got left at the prom.
Oh
I
no!
was a little bit heartbroken, Josh.
I'm, I know I'm a jerk. I listen. I wasn't.
Actually, the people you had on were awesome. So I've actually known John Bomberger for a while. I think he's a
Yeah,
really awesome dude. I did
fantastic.
not know that you knew him. He is
You actually, he reached out to me after we'd been talking. He's like, "Hey, yeah,
nice.
I saw your podcast with Judah," and So I mean, that's how we got connected. But Rocky,
Well, so you're welcome then.
yeah, I
I guess
know.
what I should say is you're
That's
welcome.
what I'm saying. You introduced me to somebody new. I love it. Yeah. So I mean, look, we're back a week later, and I said right before we went live, I think the tides have turned here. Like I finally got my 5-year-old out of the house, so he's not busting in on our conversation,
Yeah,
and him.
mine are
So
bugging me today. They are usually pretty compliant. I usually put the fear of the Lord into them, not to bug me when I'm on one of these lives.
yeah,
And today, I'm just not having it. But like two things.
yeah,
So complaining about your kids bothering you while you're working falls on deaf ears because everybody's experiencing that right now.
yeah, of
And
course.
also, I feel like everyone has an unusual amount of grace for kids bothering them right now during this whole
Yeah.
time.
Even in the work like normal business, like I love my kids. Like
Right.
it's a little embarrassing, but man, I'd rather have them come and sit on my lap. They can throw in their 2 cents. But
So a lot of what I do as well with the real estate investing world as an active real estate investor, as an active coach and mentor for real estate investors. By the way, just all for free. Like if I'm listing your house or I'm your realtor on a transaction or I'm representing you for property management or whatever, I just help people. And
yeah,
so I get into a lot of properties that I'm doing and also for other people. And I drag my kids along as much as possible.
yeah.
Um, so that we can, so I can show them what I'm doing and everything like that. So
What's the easiest way to get them absorbed into the business, right? I mean, you know,
yeah, absolutely. From a very early age, you should be doing that. I'm setting up right now an Amazon book selling thing for my kids,
yeah,
not to make a whole bunch of money or anything like that, but just so that they get the experience of starting an online business. And instead of a lemonade stand, I would rather them, number one, have it be about books. Number two, learning the process of selling stuff online.
yeah. No, I mean, look, I've gone through that with my son, and I mean, my oldest is 11. My goal really with my kids is like by the time they graduate from high school, I want them to own a rental property, at least
Right.
one. Get them integrated. All right, so I mean, let's dive into some market updates. I put out this, the marketing for this our conversation this morning before necessarily going and reading all the news. And my goodness, you would think that the world is coming to an end with some of the headlines on these articles that are coming
I
out.
know.
And I think it's really important, for us to at least discuss some of the lighter side of this and put it a little in perspective, right? Yeah, I mean, you were telling me about some of the industries that are doing really well, and I mean,
Well,
predictably.
yeah, I mean, I was just reading this morning because a lot of numbers are dropping and things like are coming out is what I mean by,
Yeah,
dropping. The data's dropping. And of course, like the grocery store industry is up 27%. So
right.
27% boom in groceries. And some people think that there's some debate right now whether that's going to stick around or not because we're kind of are all stocked up. And I see that number staying strong and staying high because restaurants aren't open. Now some restaurants are open like for
Yeah.
takeout and things like that. I'm planning on giving my kids a super duper treat and they're not going to have to eat dad's cooking, even though I'm a pretty good cook. You follow me on Facebook.
Yeah.
We're actually like, I'm going to go pick up a pizza, take out, pizza tonight. And so I think that some restaurants are figuring out how to still be open and not do zero business, but
Yeah.
pretty much, you know, we're eating at grocery stores, and I see that happening. But there's also, general merchandise stores, those types of things like Lowe's and Home Depot and other places like that, and then health and wellness and personal care. Think CVS and Walgreens and things like that. So those are at like 4 to 6% increase. So like we're seeing, even though we've been shut down for a month. Now, by the way, furniture stores are down, 20%. Clothing stores are down 50%. So it's a bloodbath out there, but it's not a universal bloodbath.
Well, and it's predictable. I mean, because really, we're seeing numbers. I mean, if you're in the housing industry at all, you're probably getting barraged on Facebook and your Google feeds and stuff like that with all this bad news. But the truth is, look, if everybody's staying home and we have a 10 or 15 or 25% drop in volume, that's not surprising at all. It's amazing that it only dropped that much. I mean, there's a lot of really good things that are coming out of this. I think that if we put it in perspective of the insanity of this lockdown that we've gone through, and I mean, that's not a judgment call whether it should or shouldn't be happening. Right.
It is crazy.
It's just the reality of this change in our society right now. It's really not that surprising that we've got, some of the bad numbers coming out. And once this loosens up, I think we're going to see a pretty decent rebound. And it probably isn't going to happen overnight, but it's going to happen.
Well, I think here's why I am. First of all, I'm long-term bullish on America, no matter what. I mean, people love to beat up on America, and I think that she may not be she's always the most beautiful girl at the ball, despite what everybody else says. I wouldn't want to go home with anybody else. So I think that when you look at the words of Ronald Reagan, he said, it doesn't matter what the economists say about whether it's a recession or a depression or whatever. And there's a very technical definitions. It matters what's going on with you, because the quip that he had, the old joke he had was, a recession is when your neighbor loses his job. A depression is when you lose your job, meaning it like bring it home to roost. So I would just encourage everybody to stop and think. Do you know anybody who's not chomping at the bit to go back to work right now? Do you know anybody who's not chomping at the bit to get this economy going again? Do you know anybody who's not actively looking forward to getting out of the house and doing things and spending money and shopping and going back to work? And I just think that there's so much pent-up demand right now that, despite what all these numbers look like, they just frankly don't matter.
Right. And we're not going to know what the real numbers are until we're through this, until things start to return. And I mean, that's some of the good news, right? Like, I think people are they're getting to the point where, like, hey, it's time to get back to work, even though it may not be. I mean, there's a protest in Lebanon, in Lebanon County next week.
Really?
Government shutdown. Yeah. I mean, you see this new, the state Senate bill 614 that it passed. I don't know if it passed with the Senate, and I'm not sure if Governor Wolf signed it into law yet. No, didn't happen. Okay. So, I mean, that's still pending, but it looks like agents are going to get back to work soon. Construction is going to get back to work soon. There's reasonable adjustments that we can make to our daily working life that will keep people safe enough. And frankly, there's been a lot more news coming out about the science behind COVID-19. I mean, just the fact that, like, it turns out that the issue is not the attack on the lungs, that the thing doesn't necessarily attack the lungs. It's a blood issue, and the blood issue prevents oxygen from being absorbed into the body. So that's a huge jump forward. I read something this morning that Hershey Medical Center is testing some of these. Oh, look at this. All right, John's coming in here. John Baumberger just jumped in. He said the bill passed the Senate, and Governor Wolf is expected to veto it, which amazes me.
That's what I was. I was 90% sure about that. I'm glad Baumberger jumped in there and helped us out with that, because I was well, I won't get political. Some
I will. I
people,
will. It's amazing. The governor's brother's business is still open,
right?
but realtors can't go back to work. I mean, it's nuts. It's nuts.
I think that some people, their own power base is grown by people's dependence on government. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, you can be politically correct. I'm from day one with this whole shutdown. What shocked me more than anything else is the brazenness of the government. I saw I was talking to my wife about this, and not a day later, I saw this post from an attorney out of Philly who
Yep.
he laid out this whole argument that the governor does not have the right to shut down local businesses. And the
Right.
reason for that is that they take on these emergency powers that say nothing about pandemic, sickness, illness, all that kind of stuff. I actually think that it was smart to do what we've done. I think it was necessary, but if the government doesn't have the right to do it, how the heck are we giving them the right?
Well, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Here's the important thing, and it comes back to personal responsibility and what you own personally do. Is it doesn't matter what the government can or can't do. It matters what the populace is willing to go along with.
Right.
And so that's why I have strong opinions, but it doesn't matter whether the government is overreaching or not overreaching or whatever, because the people are willing to go along with it. And by and large, people are willing to be self-quarantined, and that's fine and great. And we are I don't want to be derisive by saying we're following like sheep, but right now, I mean, the populace has been relatively compliant, and that's been a good thing. I think, unfortunately, the leadership has been strong going into this, and we're still not seeing leadership for what it looks like coming out. And I know that I'm probably sounding like a broken record on that, because I've mentioned it 2 or 3 times here on calls with you, but because some people are going to want to start sooner rather than later, and some people are going to want to have a medium timeline and a long timeline, without a clear definition of when which industries are starting and why, we're going to see people coming up with their own timelines, and then you're going to see people pushing back on that. And so I really think that there is more chance for short-term panic, short-term problem, short-term rioting, looting, other things like that on the back end of this than there is on the front. And that's just something that we need to be cautious and careful about. Sorry, I'm like holding my phone here, and this is my first time with this, and it's like reversed. So like if I wanted to go left, I have to go right and everything like that. So I feel like I'm probably giving everybody at home seasick because of watching this. So I apologize about that.
No,
But here's the other thing though, Josh, that I think is important. And I'm sending an email to my massive email list later on today about this, that there is a lot there we're going to see the return of overlays. And overlays are something that local banks do. Like, if you walk into your credit union, they might say, well, if you're not putting at least 20% down to get an FHA loan with us, you've got to have a 640 credit score or a 660 credit score. You know what I mean? Right. Whereas FHA actually does not have a minimum credit score. A lot of people don't know that. So there are these overlays that banks come up with, and over the past 10 years, those overlays have gone away, and they've all kind of streamlined, and they've all minimized and things like that. What we're going to see coming out of this that I think is important to know is we're going to see different lenders with different overlays. And my fear is that somebody is going to walk into their local bank and say, well, let's use an example for you. Let's just say for Josh, hey, they walk into their local bank and they say, I'm going to go get a hard money loan with hard money bankers, and then I'm going to refinance it and take it out. And that local bank might say, well, you've got to own it for 6 months, or you've got to own it for a year, or if it goes up in value more than 20%, you need 2 appraisals.
Yeah.
All of those are local bank requirements, and nowhere in the law does it say if a loan goes up in value more than 20%, you need two appraisals or something like that, or you have to own it for 6 months. So I would just encourage everyone to understand that on the backside of this, just because one lender says something doesn't mean every lender is going to treat it that way. And that's true for takeout loans on your hard money that you do with Josh. That's true for direct purchases for investment loans or primary residences or anything like that.
So on to piggyback.
Sorry, you've been trying to get in for 5 minutes, and I've just been
every time you talk, you bring up 5 talking points that I want to jump in on, and I gotta just back off. So, I mean, you brought up a number of different things here. So, to piggyback on what you're saying, the first thing is that this is going to give a lot of advantage to mortgage brokers that have a lot of contacts and have the experience to match up the borrower with the best lender. And recently that hasn't been the case. The rates have been a little bit higher. There's might be a point in there to pay the broker. Now that it makes a heck of a lot more sense to go to a mortgage broker that can help you with that. The second thing is the biggest issue that I'm having right now and communicating with borrowers, and that I'm seeing a lot, is that people don't seem to understand that appraisals that happened, even appraisals that people are having done today, they're based on sales from a totally different world.
Yes.
And what those numbers look like in 30, 60, 90, 180 days could be completely different. And so when you're going into an investment, if you're looking at buying a property right now, and I think it's a great time to buy, you really got to factor in a fudge factor of the unknown. It's got to be, 15, 20, 30%, below what maybe the highest sales price have been on a flip. If you're looking at 6 months out, now you look at a year and a half from now, 2 years from now, it's a totally different story. Even 30 days from now, we may have better numbers and be able to say, okay, we're all back to work now and everything's fine. We've got a cure for this thing and everything's all right. But in the interim, the uncertainty is really where I think the problem lies in the housing market. It's like what can happen next as opposed to what will happen next.
Yeah, I think that a couple of things there. So I'm old enough and have enough gray hairs to prove it that I've seen this before. And shortly after downturns, corrections, whatever you want to call them, banks are going to require current listings to be in the appraisal. So not just give me 2 or 3 or 4, never just 2. Don't just give me 3 or 4 sold comps within a certain geographic area within a certain time frame. They're also going to say, give me an active listing or 2. So that they know what homes are currently being listed for. That's good information for you as a real estate investor. Remember, you as a real estate investor, you don't want to know what a house will appraise for. You want to know what will I actually be able to sell it for and get it under contract for in under 30 days, actually preferably 2 weeks.
Right.
So don't lie to yourself. Don't let the appraisal lie to you. Don't go out there and find people talk about it with news sources all the time or scientific information. It's confirmation bias. We believe what we want to believe and things like that. Well, guess what? It happens to business owners and real estate investors a lot too. Absolutely. You find the value, and I can drive you right now within 10 minutes of my house where properties I've lost money on because I wanted to believe that a house that was clearly only worth $210,000, I thought it was going to be able to sell for $230,000. You know what I mean? And so you just don't lie to yourself.
Right. And so I talked to Rocky Lalvani yesterday, and he does an analysis in his properties. I talked to him, and he was telling me he didn't buy one property in 2019.
Correct.
He said, "Look, when I buy a house, I know I'm going to make money on it. There's almost no way that I can't make money on it, but it restricts the number of properties that I can buy." Right. This is the time, if you're an investor, you ought to just be buying home runs. Like, that's it. That's all there is to it.
If it ain't low hanging fruit, I ain't eating.
That's what
Ron LeGrand always said. If it ain't low hanging fruit, I ain't eating.
That's right. So, I mean, to kind of circle back on our good news section, right?
Yep.
If you are interested in how the housing market is doing, and you want to see agents and contractors get back to work, call your local your PA legislators and really push on this bill, the Senate Bill 614. It's really an important part of getting the real estate industry back on track. It's not an open-ended door that just says, hey, we're going to take things back to the way they were. But it's a way to be able to have home inspections done, have people listing properties and showing the property, not irresponsibly, but, with social distancing and all that kind of stuff. But it at least gets the ball rolling. It gets us back to work and closer to some kind of normal.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's important for everybody here. So now I'm off my soapbox. Let's talk about what could happen. What if the world is going to end? What are you seeing that is kind of surprising?
So I think, the biggest thing that I think is so surprising is people are shorter term panicky than what they need to be. People are talking about pulling money out of stocks, bonds, and mutual funds right now. And if you're under 60 and you're thinking about touching any of that stuff, just don't. And I don't say that as a financial planner. I don't say that as anything other than it's very important. Here's the thing. When the yield curve goes down and we're not making as much money on real estate, on stocks, things like that. When yields are down, guess what else is down? Risk is low. Everybody says, oh my goodness, I'm panicking, I've lost so much money. Well, yeah, right now is actually there's the least risk in doing real estate deals right now than there has been for the past 3 to 5 to 7 years. I'll never forget the time that I was, it was in the late 90s and I was watching the news, and because I just got myself in the habit of watching headline news every day, MSN, headline news. And there was this guy talking about how, real estate is really hot right now. A lot of people are doing real estate right now because it's been good for the past couple of years. And he says, I actually don't think real estate's the right thing to do when it's been good for the past couple of years. You want to wait until it's been bad. And that was even like 5 years before I bought my first rental property. I remember that. So I've seen several of these dips, and I can tell you, after we have a dip, what surprises me, you said, what surprises me? What surprises me is that people don't correlate and recognize in the bad times, you need to just understand that to buy low, sell high. You have to be willing to buy low, and then be willing to sell high. But so many people, when it comes to real estate, stocks, bonds, and mutual funds, they sell low and they buy high, and it's why real estate. It's why wealth is like energy. Wealth is like matter. It's never created or destroyed. It just changes hands. And it's so sad because I see a lot of people having their money transferred from them right now, and it wouldn't have to be transferred from them.
Yeah. Okay. So great point. I don't know if you remember December 2018, but the stock market tanked for a month.
Yeah.
Coincidentally, I picked up some of the greatest deals on properties during that time because everybody got panicked and started running out of the market, and it dried up, and wholesalers were cutting their prices. It was fantastic. Fast forward, we're in a very similar situation. Unless you have to cash out in the next couple of years on your portfolio, why would you sell? I mean, like prices are low. You don't want to sell low, Now's the time. And I'm not saying to get in the stock market. I don't know anything about the stock market. I literally don't know anything about it. So I'm not going to throw my 2 cents in there. But I will say, like, real estate, like, if prices dip, now's the time to buy long-term holds. Now's the time to stabilize a good portfolio of strong rentals in B+ neighborhoods that a year ago wouldn't cash flow. Now, you get them at enough of a discount, you're in good shape.
I also think the other good piece of news here, and then I have a 12:30 call I got to jump on. I think the other really good piece of news, and again, I hate to be self-congratulatory and toot my own horn, but like every day, because we
Yeah.
have 4,000 units that we manage, like we track our numbers on a daily basis. How much rent did we collect today? How does that historically compare? How does that historically compare to any month? How does that historically compare to past Aprils? You know what I mean? Like we track all those numbers. We're just in love with data. We've been 1 or 2% off. That's it.
That's
We've
great.
been collecting rent, and I think that a large part of that is because people are not out spending money,
Yep.
but people are getting unemployment from the government, and people's paychecks and are just shifting from one to the other. And I really think that once this is all over, we are going to see people continuing to pay rent, people shopping, people going out. I think that we are going to see a strong economic recovery.
I agree with you.
Don't listen to what the numbers are right now, because they haven't gotten. I mean, the situation hasn't gotten worse in the past 2 weeks. You know what I mean? The economy is what it is. It's just we're learning about what the numbers are. We're learning about how bad they are. But there's not mobs of people roaming the streets. Violence hasn't spiked. Actually, violence is way down. Crime is way down. And we just got to ride this thing out. Maybe you would put a different timeline on ending it than others, but I am very excited for what we're going to be seeing on the other side of this.
I agree with you. All right, Judah, you got to go. Everybody, thank you. I want to answer one question here, if you got a second.
Sure.
Been commenting, which is great, and he asked about our thoughts on people that are deemed essential. They might not be able to file for unemployment and collect unemployment benefits. What do you think on that side? And I mean, I think it's a great question. It's like a calculated risk, right? Like you want to be able to.
So like if you're a nurse and you happen to just lose your job because of other reasons.
You just covered up your mic.
If you're a nurse and you just happen to lose your job for other reasons, can you hear me
now? No. All right. So yeah, if you're a nurse or you're saying
if you're like a nurse and you've lost your job for other reasons, you might not be able to file for unemployment right now because the government would say, go get a different job as a nurse. They're encouraging those people. I know a woman who retired in January and she said she's back to work at Hershey Med.
Well, exactly. I mean, so like there's definitely going to be situations with that, but I think everybody can agree that ultimately we all want to go back to work. I mean, we're sick and tired of this, and there's going to be situations where companies are out of business or in furlough their employees or whatever, and in those cases, like, look, unemployment is the right way to go. But in other cases, like, look, if people can get back to work, that's what they want to do, and ultimately. So. All right, so the outlook is better than we had thought it. Certainly better than the news headlines. Keep your head up, everybody. Get a smile on your face. Give your kids a hug, and hey, we'll be back doing this tomorrow. Thanks a lot, everybody, for joining us, and we'll see you soon. Take care,
everybody.